The small human colony of Greyridge was quiet at night. It always was. Built on the edge of explored space, it existed for people who liked silence, routine, and distance from crowded worlds. Most residents worked with machines, data, or long-distance communications. They lived alone, spoke little, and kept their lives simple. Evan Calder was one of them. He was a maintenance technician, responsible for keeping the colony's power relays and atmospheric systems running. It was honest work, but lonely. Evan had no family nearby, no close friends on the colony, and no real reason to leave his small apartment except for work. After long shifts, he often returned to empty rooms and quiet walls. That was why, after months of hesitation, he finally placed the order. The ad had appeared on the official galactic marketplace, approved for civilian use. It showed a small, round alien creature covered in soft fur, with large eyes and short limbs. The description said it was a non-sapient comfort companion, bred to reduce stress and loneliness in isolated workers. It required minimal care, could understand basic commands, and would form an emotional bond with its owner. Evan read the listing 3 times. He checked the legal tags, the trade approvals, and the warnings. Everything seemed in order. He was not buying a person. He would never do that. He just wanted something alive in his home, something that would greet him when he came back from work. He clicked confirm. The delivery was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During those days, Evan cleaned his apartment more than usual. He set up a small sleeping area near the heater and bought approved nutrient packs listed in the care guide. He even felt slightly embarrassed about how much he thought about it. The idea of coming home to something warm and friendly made the long days easier. When the delivery alert finally arrived, it was late in the evening. Evan had just finished a meal when his door chime rang. He checked the time. Deliveries usually came during daylight hours, but delays were common on the outer colonies. He grabbed his tablet and walked to the door. "Confirm delivery," a mechanical voice said through the panel. Evan pressed his thumb to the scanner. The door slid open. There was no crate, no carrier. Instead, a figure stood in the hallway, small and shaking. At first, Evan didn't understand what he was seeing. His mind searched for familiar shapes, for fur or paws. But the being in front of him stood upright, wrapped in a thin, damaged cloak. She was roughly human-sized, though slimmer, with digitigrade legs and long arms held close to her body. Her skin was pale with a faint blue-gray tone, patterned with natural markings that looked like frost lines. Strands of soft, silver-white fur ran along her arms, neck, and down her spine, but her face was not animal-like. It was clearly expressive, with large, dark eyes, a small nose, and a mouth trembling in fear. A metal collar circled her neck. She looked up at Evan, eyes wide, and spoke in a quiet, broken voice. "Please, don't send me back." Evan froze. For a full second, his brain refused to process what was happening. This was wrong, completely wrong. The marketplace had strict rules. Comfort companions were not sapient. They did not speak. She took a small step back, pressing herself against the corridor wall. "I will be quiet," she said quickly. "I will not cause trouble. I will do anything, just please." Evan's heart began to pound. He looked past her down the empty hallway. No guards, no drones, just the soft hum of the colony's life support systems. "This," he said slowly, his voice unsteady, "this must be a mistake." Her ears, slightly pointed and covered in short fur, flattened against her head. "They said humans would be kind," she whispered. That sentence shattered the last of Evan's doubt. This was not a pet. This was a person. Evan stepped aside without fully deciding to do so. "Come in," he said. She hesitated, as if expecting punishment, then hurried inside. The door slid shut behind her with a quiet hiss. The sound seemed to make her flinch. Evan stood there, staring at the closed door, his hands shaking. He had just accepted delivery of an illegally trafficked alien, and he knew it. "Sit," he said gently, pointing to a chair. She sat immediately, posture rigid, hands folded in her lap. Up close, Evan could see bruises on her wrists and ankles, half-healed scratches, and the faint glow of the collar. He recognized the model, control device, restricted but still used in some parts of the galaxy. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "I was called Unit 74, she said quietly. Evan swallowed. "That's not a name." Her eyes flickered with confusion, then something like hope. "I don't remember another." "Then we'll figure one out later," Evan said. "You're safe here for now." Safe. The word seemed to mean everything to her. Her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath she had clearly been holding for a long time. "My species is called the Lyrari," she said after a moment. "We are listed as semi-sentient. It is not true." "I can see that," Evan said. She looked down at the collar. "They say we feel but do not understand, that we copy emotions but do not own them, so they sell us." Evan felt anger rise in his chest, sharp and sudden. "That's wrong," he said. She looked up at him again, searching his face. "You believe that?" "Yes." Something changed in her expression. Not relief, not yet, but disbelief mixed with curiosity. They talked quietly for a long time. She told him her people came from a cold world with long nights. They built cities of crystal and stone, studied the stars, and wrote history in song. When faster species arrived, they were labeled primitive, then useful. Trade classifications changed. Words were rewritten. Evan listened, fists clenched. "You know," he said finally, "if the colony authority finds you here, they'll take you." Her ears flattened again. "I know. They'll say you're property," she nodded. "And if I report the seller," Evan continued, "they might erase you. Say you were never sentient enough to matter." She closed her eyes. "I know." Silence filled the room. Evan looked around his small apartment, at the tools on the wall, the plain furniture, the quiet life he had chosen. Then he looked at her. "I won't report you," he said. Her eyes snapped open. "I won't let them take you," he continued. "But this means hiding, lying, risking my job." She stood suddenly and bowed her head deeply. "I will serve you," she said. "I will repay." "No," Evan said sharply. She froze. "I'm not your owner," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "I'm helping you, that's all." She stared at him, clearly struggling to understand a kindness without conditions. Slowly, she nodded. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He lay on his bed, listening to the faint sounds of movement in the other room. Every time the hallway outside hummed, his heart jumped. He knew colony scanners sometimes ran random checks. He knew the laws. Harboring trafficked beings was a serious offense. But every time doubt crept in, he remembered her voice. "Please don't send me back." In the early hours of the morning, he made a decision. He accessed his secure terminal and began recording everything. The delivery ID, the seller, the classification tags, the false labeling. He copied it all to an encrypted drive. If the galaxy said she wasn't a person, then he would prove it was wrong. In the next room, the alien girl sat awake, knees pulled to her chest. She listened to the unfamiliar sounds of a human home and waited for the moment everything would fall apart. But morning came, and the door did not open to guards. For the first time since she had been taken from her world, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, humans were different. Morning light filtered through the narrow window of Evan's apartment, pale and soft. It touched the metal floor, the workbench, and finally the small figure sitting quietly near the heater. The alien girl had not slept. She remained still, listening, watching, waiting for the sound of boots or alarms. They did not come. Evan woke later than usual. For a brief moment he forgot everything. Then he sat up suddenly, heart racing, and remembered. He stepped into the main room and saw her sitting there, hands folded, eyes alert. "You're still here," he said, more to himself than to her. "Yes," she replied softly. "I did not move." "You don't have to stay frozen like that," Evan said. "You can relax." She tilted her head slightly. "I do not know how." Evan sighed quietly. He grabbed a ration bar and handed it to her. She examined it carefully, then looked up at him. "Is this allowed?" she asked. "It's food," he said. "You're allowed to eat." She accepted it and took small bites as if afraid it might disappear. Evan watched her, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. No being who spoke like that should ever be called property. "My name is Evan," he said after a moment. She looked at him. "Evan," she repeated carefully as if testing the sound. "You should have a name too," he said. "A real one." She hesitated. "My mother used to sing a word to me. It meant morning light after a long night." "That sounds like a name already," Evan said gently. "Do you remember how it sounded?" She closed her eyes, thinking hard. "Airy," Evan smiled. "Then Airy it is." Her ears lifted slightly and something warm appeared in her eyes. "Airy," she said again. "That is mine." The next few days were tense. Evan continued going to work, acting normal, while Airy stayed inside the apartment. He taught her how to use basic household systems, how to stay out of sight of scanners, and how to mask her heat signature during routine checks. She learned quickly, too quickly. She watched everything, asked questions, remembered answers. "You were never non-sentient," Evan muttered one evening as she helped him repair a faulty panel. "They just didn't want to admit it." Aries' hands moved with careful skill. "They say labeling is power. If you choose the words, you choose the truth." Evan looked at her sharply. "Who taught you that?" "No one," she replied. "I listened." On the fourth day, the first problem arrived. Evan was at work when a colony alert flashed across his visor. An investigation team had been dispatched to Greyridge. Reason: irregular shipment flagged by interstellar trade oversight. Evan's stomach dropped. He rushed home as soon as his shift ended. Airy met him at the door, eyes wide. "They came," she said. "Drones." They scanned the building. "Did they find you?" Evan asked. "No," she replied. "I hid as you taught me." Evan leaned against the wall, breathing out slowly. "They're looking for you or for proof that the shipment was wrong." She lowered her head. "You should turn me in." "They will punish you." "No," Evan said immediately. "I won't." "Why?" she asked quietly. "It would be easier," he looked at her. "Because some things matter more than easy." That night, Evan contacted someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Dr. Lena Morales had once worked with him on a deep space station before transferring to Earth's Diplomatic Research Council. She specialized in first contact ethics and sentient classification disputes. If anyone could help, it was her. The message he sent was simple, encrypted, and dangerous. "I have proof of illegal sapient trafficking. They mislabeled a sentient species. I need help." The reply came hours later. "If this is real, Evan, it changes everything. Do not involve local authorities. Document everything. Humans will back you, but only if you are certain." Evan looked at Airy as he read the message. "I'm certain," he said aloud. The next week was a blur of tension and learning. Evan recorded hours of conversation with Airy, asking her questions about logic, memory, culture, and emotion. She answered thoughtfully, sometimes correcting his assumptions. "You humans ask questions like ladders," she said once. "One step at a time." "And you?" Evan asked. "We think like songs," she replied. "Themes return, meanings grow." He captured her solving technical problems, understanding abstract concepts, making moral choices. Each file was time-stamped, verified, and encrypted. Meanwhile, Airy learned about humans. She watched old documentaries, listened to music, and read translated stories. She was especially drawn to tales of human resistance, of people standing against unfair systems. "You are very stubborn," she said one evening. "We prefer the word persistent," Evan replied. She smiled, but danger kept getting closer. Colony announcements grew more frequent. Inspectors questioned residents. Rumors spread about misclassified cargo. Evan kept his head down, but he knew it was only a matter of time. Then one afternoon, Airy collapsed. Evan found her on the floor, gasping softly. The collar around her neck glowed brighter than before. "It's activating," Evan said, panic rising. He recognized the signs. The collar was designed to punish prolonged disobedience or deviation from assigned behavior. I did nothing wrong, Ari whispered. I know, Evan said. He grabbed his tools, hands shaking. Hold on. The collar was complex, alien-made, and locked by remote authority. Removing it without the shutdown code could kill her. Evan hesitated for only a second. He connected his terminal to the collar and began probing its systems. Alarms flashed. Security protocols resisted him. Sweat ran down his face as he worked faster than he ever had before. Ari, he said, listen to me. If this goes wrong. I trust you, she said, eyes fixed on his. Whatever happens. Something inside Evan hardened. He bypassed the final lock. The collar shut down with a soft click and fell open. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Ari breathed freely, deeply, as if air itself had become lighter. She reached up slowly and touched her neck. It's gone, she whispered. Evan laughed, a shaky sound full of relief. Yeah, it's gone. They sat there in silence afterward, both shaken. They will know, Ari said quietly. The signal is gone, they will come. Then we make sure they can't ignore us, Evan replied. That same night, Dr. Morales sent another message. We're escalating this. Human media channels are ready. Once this is public, the galaxy won't be able to pretend anymore. But you need to understand something, Evan. This will make you a target. Evan typed his response without hesitation. Do it. The broadcast went live 2 days later. It showed Ari speaking clearly, calmly, explaining her people's history, their culture, and how they were reduced to trade goods. It showed her laughing at a human joke, solving a logic puzzle, and asking a question no non-sentient being ever would. What gives someone the right to decide who counts? The reaction was immediate. Human networks exploded with outrage. Advocacy groups mobilized. Lawyers demanded hearings. Other colonies reported similar cases, hidden in plain sight for years, and the galaxy watched. Alien trade authorities denied wrongdoing at first. Then they shifted blame. Then they went silent. On Greyridge, security forces arrived at Evan's door. Evan stood between them and Ari. She is under human protection, he said. She is classified as property, the lead officer replied. Evan met their gaze without backing down. Not anymore, he said. Behind him, Ari stood tall, no collar on her neck, no fear in her eyes. For the first time, she did not feel like something being hunted. She felt like someone being seen. And somewhere far beyond Greyridge, powerful beings began to realize that humanity had noticed something they had tried very hard to keep hidden. The security officers stood still in the doorway, their armor reflecting the soft lights of Evan's apartment. The lead officer glanced at Ari, then at the open collar lying on the floor. This situation is above your authority, the officer said flatly. Step aside. Evan did not move. She is a sentient being, he said, and she is not leaving with you. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a voice echoed from the hallway speaker. Stand down. The officers stiffened. A small drone floated forward, projecting a human diplomatic seal. This is acting liaison Dr. Lena Morales, the voice said. By emergency order, all local action regarding the Lyrari individual is suspended. Any attempt to seize her will be considered interference with an active human investigation. The officers exchanged looks. Slowly, they stepped back. The door slid shut. Evan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Ari looked at him, her hands trembling slightly. They listen, she said. For now, Evan replied. But this isn't over. It was. Within days, Greyridge was no longer quiet. Ships arrived carrying observers, journalists, legal experts, and diplomats. What had begun as a single illegal shipment had turned into a galaxy-wide argument. At the center of it all stood Ari. She was moved to a secure human facility, not as a prisoner but as a protected witness. Evan stayed nearby, officially listed as her sponsor and primary contact. He attended every briefing, every meeting, every tense discussion where powerful voices tried to explain why the old system should remain unchanged. She meets criteria for limited cognition. one alien delegate argued during a broadcast session. Ari listened carefully, then responded in clear, steady words. "Then why do I know when you are lying?" she asked. Silence followed. Humans did not shout. They did not threaten. They did something far more dangerous. They documented. Human researchers published studies. Lawyers filed challenges. Engineers presented data showing Lyrari technology older than many current spacefaring civilizations. Linguists demonstrated the complexity of their language. Psychologists showed emotional depth and independent reasoning. Every excuse collapsed under evidence. The Galactic Council finally called for a formal tribunal. It was held on a neutral station, ancient and vast, floating between major trade routes. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber. Some came angry. Some came afraid. Some came curious. Ari walked into the chamber beside Evan. She wore simple human clothing adjusted for her form. No chains, no collar, just fabric and dignity. Whispers followed her. The tribunal began. They questioned her for hours about her childhood, her education, her understanding of freedom, her sense of self. Ari answered each question calmly. "I am not confused," she said at one point. "I was made confused by others telling me what I was allowed to be." An elder delegate leaned forward. "Do you understand the concept of law?" "Yes," Ari replied. "It is a story societies agree to follow, but stories can be wrong." The words echoed through the chamber. When it was Evan's turn, he spoke plainly. "I didn't plan to challenge the galaxy," he said. "I just opened my door." He described the ad, the delivery. The fear in Ari's voice, the collar, the silence that made injustice feel normal. "Humans are new out here," he continued. "But maybe that's why we noticed. We still remember what it feels like to be labeled lesser." The opposition argued back. They warned of economic collapse, trade disruption, and precedent. Human representatives responded with a simple statement. "If your economy requires slavery by another name," one diplomat said, "then it deserves to collapse." The tribunal recessed for 3 days. Those days were the longest of Ari's life. She sat with Evan in a quiet observation room, watching stars drift past the station windows. "If they decide against us," she said softly, "what happens?" "They'll have to try very hard to take you," Evan replied. "And humans are very hard to move once we decide to stay put." She studied him. "You changed your whole life for me." "You changed mine first," he said. On the 4th day, the tribunal returned. The chamber was full. Even those who had not cared before were watching now. The ruling was read aloud. "The Lyrari are hereby recognized as a fully sapient species." A gasp spread across the room. "All trade, ownership, or restraint of Lyrari individuals is declared illegal under galactic law." The chamber erupted. Some shouted in protest. Others in relief. Ari stood frozen, her ears slowly lifting as the words sank in. "The trafficking networks responsible will be dismantled," the ruling continued, "and all misclassified sentient species will undergo immediate review." Evan felt his knees weaken. He reached out, steadying himself against the railing. Ari turned to him, eyes shining. "It's over," she whispered. "No," Evan said gently, "it's just beginning." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy adjusted, not smoothly, not quietly, but inevitably. Former owners faced trials, trade codes were rewritten, entire industries had to change, and humanity earned a reputation that spread faster than any fleet. They were called troublesome, idealistic, dangerous. Humans accepted all of it. Ari was offered many choices. She could return to her people, now free to rebuild openly. She could join a human research program. She could travel as an ambassador. She chose something simpler. She chose to stay with humans, not as property, not as a symbol, but as a bridge. Months later, Evan and Ari stood on a balcony overlooking a busy human-alien port. Ships of many designs came and went. Voices mixed. Life moved forward. "Do you regret answering the door?" Ari asked. Evan smiled. Best delivery mistake I ever made." She laughed, a sound full of warmth and strength. Somewhere in the galaxy, a quiet truth had settled in. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest. They were not the most advanced. But when they saw wrong and knew it was wrong, they refused to look away. And that made all the difference.